just devastating to the fan base. When it comes to, though, injury, we have been dealing with a lot of injuries, and one of the probably more significant ones that has affected our defensive play. Look, the Carolina Panthers defense was pretty good through the first 6 weeks of the season. Over the last 2 weeks, they gave up like 79 points or some crap like that. Jeremy Chin has been inactive. He's been on injured reserve because of a hamstring injury. He's back on the practice field, but today Steve Wilkes said he will not be playing on Thursday. That would be asinine to rush him in on a short week, which I think is a smart move. And I would say the only thing that's heartening about this picture is that's a fly helmet he's wearing.
It's a damn fly helmet. We're going to talk a little bit more about those helmets, but I mean, no, just a simple question. Like, what kind of difference does Jeremy Chin make to this defense right now? Like, if any, can you?
Is it enough?
But that's what I'm saying. Can you make the case that maybe our defense has not looked as good because Jeremy Chin is our new Luke Kuechly? Not even comparing them as a player, but just saying that
like
our defense runs like a well-oiled machine when Jeremy Chin
or
is
it's
out
better.
there
I wouldn't go
thing.
well-oiled. I would just say it's better with him on the field. He is a playmaker.
I don't know that I would say that even, because when you look at our team when he was playing, we weren't like super dominant on defense. Our best defensive performance came on the back of him not being in there, like against Atlanta.
I don't know if I believe that.
I mean, not Atlanta, but against
I think our Saints game was a good defense. Yeah, the Brady one was a good defense, was a good game. But I think this is that I don't know if we have Jeremy Chin against Atlanta, we win maybe because Kyle Pitts doesn't take that touchdown and run with it.
Right.
He's like a guy that's what he's there for in some ways. He makes us better. Look, let's not argue that. We're not better without him.
Right.
But I also believe this is that like, is this kind of like a leaky boat, right? And we got leaks all over the bottom in the hull. And yes, he would be a plug in one of the leaks, but there's just still more over the place.
How much of our love for Jeremy Chin is based solely off of his rookie year?
None. Well, no. Well, I mean, a lot, but no, he's been good the whole time. He had a good sophomore year. It was just hard to live up to a year where he had 2 defensive touchdowns in one single game against Minnesota. Right. It's like it's like Jamar Chase is going to regress to the mean after a year like he had his rookie year. Like, It's impossible for him to have 1,700 yards every season with 12 touchdowns. Like, if he gets 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns this season, you'll be like, ugh.
Well, can I make a point here, too? If you remember back to the information, to the source that we released, there were rumors that Jeremy Chin in his time here was very unhappy with the way that he had been played on defense, and that there was rumors that there was even a bit of a beef between him and Phil Snow. Basically, that they were making him be a jack of all trades and a master of none, knowing how sometimes he would play him at linebacker, sometimes he's a strong safety, sometimes he's a free safety. They really asked him to do a lot. And, this defense is so young, even considering Al Holcomb. Al Holcomb hasn't really even had Jeremy Chin at his disposal very much yet, if at all. So I do think it's going to be very interesting to see how the Panthers continue to implement Jeremy Chin going forward. But at the end of the day, yeah, like what Tony said, you are better having your best players on the field. And knowing that the Falcons are going to have Cordero Patterson back, man, it helps to have a player like Jeremy Chin.
I think CK raises a interesting and more reasonable question, though, than I would give it like on face value, right? It's like, I think the question is like, are we just like in love with Jeremy Chin because he's the prettiest ugly girl Man, I wouldn't say that, but you know what I'm saying? Like how much?
Right.
And really what I would think is that the problem with Jeremy Chin has nothing to do with Jeremy Chin. It has to do that he doesn't have a ton of talent around him. Right. And like, I think he's excelled. I think he's been fantastic. He had a fantastic rookie year. He had a good sophomore year. It wasn't as good as his rookie year. It was hard to, especially when our defense kind of just regressed in a lot of different ways towards the end of the season. I think he was making an impact on this team this year. For me, I'm glad we're not playing him simply because, like, why we have a good young player. Who really cares at this point? If we don't want him to continue to get hurt. We don't want to, when you play injured, you compensate. When you're coming back from an injury, like does this hamstring link to an ankle injury that, you're compensating somewhere? When you're not playing healthy, it's difficult. The other thing too, when it comes to this is, or what Cody was talking about, what's interesting about Jeremy Chin, if you guys remember his rookie season, he had a personal coach because they looked at him like that multi-tool. So he would do like 30 minutes in the linebacker room, 30 minutes in the safety room. And he had one guy that like trailed and followed him around. So I'm glad. I think Steve Wilkes is making, I think first he's a secondary coach, he's coached defensive backs. And I think he realizes too that like sacrificing these players' well-being for short-term gains is irresponsible. And I think that shows you a lot about the character of Steve Wilkes and someone who's been in the game for a long time. Yeah. Speaking of coaches, guys, a couple of them got the axe today or yesterday.
Yeah.
And my favorite quote about this is, this is like rearranging deck chairs as the Titanic sinks. Paul Pasqualoni and was the other guy? Who was the other guy? Gosh, why is his name? Something else. Why do I not have it written on the slide? We got rid of Paul Pasqualoni, and this is I think he's a defensive backs coach, this kid. No one knows his name. Not a single person on this show knows this dude's name.
Paul Pasqualoni or the other guy?
The other guy.
Yeah, he's a secondaries coach. I know that.
The other guy. Who is this other dude? Hold on.
Evan Cooper.
Evan Cooper. Thank you.
No, thanks specifically to Matt Knows Nothing. Because
Matt knows everything, obviously.
Yeah, right? I had a tweet up, and then I lost it right at the last second. Dude, that shows you how much or how important they were. But wait, they
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, first of all, we got to remember this is that Wilkes was the secondary coach. This guy was not. He was a temporary secondary coach. It looks like because Wilkes was the defensive backs coach, as far as I know, before he got appointed to interim. Interesting fact here: Paul Pasqualoni has always looked old. Even when he was the head coach or when he was coaching with the Lions, he was born old. And this other guy, Evan Cooper, interesting fact. I'm pretty sure he was with Matt Rule at Baylor. Wow, I don't really know. What do you guys think the significance? Why do you think that Wilkes did this?
You have to, don't you? I mean,
why? Why? How does it help? How does it help?
Okay. Remember a couple of seasons back when Ron Rivera was still the head coach? It might have been 2019, and we got our asses whipped. And I'm talking bad. And Ron Rivera went through and made some cuts and some coaching changes. I kind of think if you consider that performance against the Bengals, I mean, listen, there's a reason that, why I called this podcast tonight a wounded Carolina Panthers await Atlanta Falcons, because we are wounded, man. Joe Mixon almost broke an NFL record. I mean, we were rendered completely ineffective by the third quarter. When you have that terrible of a performance, I mean, even if you want to blame the offense and the quarterback situation was bad, and maybe we just didn't have a passing attack and drop balls, that's fine. but there is literally no excuse for our defense playing as terrible as it did. There's no excuse
But
at
these
all
guys,
whatsoever. You have to make a change. And listen, I know y'all don't want to hear it, but with the Panthers being 2 games outside of the division lead, us as fans might not believe in the team right now. But if you're a head coach, everything that you do has to be aimed towards winning football games. And if you're going to put out that kind of performance, someone has to go. You might call him a scapegoat.
yes.
But hey, what else are you going to do in that situation?
Derek Brown's having his best year right now. Paul Pasqualoni, defensive line coach. We are working with
sacks on the most sacked quarterback.
What's that?
No sacks on Joe Burrow, the most sacked quarterback in the NFL.
At the same time, we weren't saying this 4 weeks ago that he was a problem. Right? And this is well, here is this is like I want to know how you're getting better in the short term, even from something like this. This one I don't really understand. I think these are we talked about this last year when Matt Rule started firing people. Is like the lifeboat is taking on water, and you got to throw some people. It's either you or some other people. I just felt like this was to make Tepper happy. Or somebody having like I don't really know how all of a sudden your defensive front like why this dude was the problem. And how about this is what do you do in the short term after this? How do you replace these guys? And also, you know, the reason you haven't fired Ben McAdoo is because you don't have a guy that you can plug and play to replace him. So I just feel like these are almost just like bystanders. I think these are people that are being thrown under the bus by the people that are running the deep state in a certain sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I don't mind if you want to call them scapegoats, because again, maybe they are. But also, I'm not necessarily too upset with it either. I mean, also consider the fact that for as much as we might like Steve Wilkes, the man, I think as time goes on, and if he continues to put up performances like that, then he's probably not going to be the head coach very long, which also means that our entire coaching staff is probably going to be out the door at some point anyway. So, you know, it's kind of like, it's a big whatever burger, just like our quarterback situation. None of these guys are going to be here long term. So why lose sleep about it now?
I'm not losing sleep about it. I just feel like this. We didn't fire Al Holcomb because he's Steve Wilkes' boy. Right? I mean, and D's ill skill says Wilkes will bring in guys he knows and trusts. Well, he's going to bring them off the street and say, hey, here's the defensive line. Get them playing well. I think this is interesting. We're going to go to this conversation in just a moment, given what's going on with the Indianapolis Colts. I just think these are collateral damage. Who put it up there? It was a great point. Is that Playa from the Himalayas said collateral damage? That's what it is. Is these guys are over there going, damn, and then boom, all of a sudden it's like they're getting sacked. So who knows? I mean, like you said, are we losing sleep over it? No. It's just my question is how do you get better? If you're trying to say we're trying to get better by Thursday, how do you put new guys in new places and say, good luck? I think that's difficult to do on the fly as well.
And today, Steve Wilkes hinted that they would even look outside the organization to bring coaches in this year, which is kind of crazier still, right? Like, how many times in the middle of a football season are you looking outside of your organization to bring
we're talking about that later, bro.
For a team that's where we're at.
How about what if you just brought in a head coach from outside the organization?
Saturday,
which I'm all right with. I'm going to have some takes that you guys are not going to like. If you're upset about the Jeff Saturday conversation in Indianapolis, stick around because Tony will make you more upset. Just like I'm with Cody Lashney here, ultimately. I'm not losing sleep over it. It's just, was it really helpful and beneficial? I don't know. More news, though, about the Panthers and this. One of the things, actually, before we transition and just kind of a segue here, is that is firing these guys just kind of part of the tanking mentality? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, who really cares at this point? Is like, just, no, you don't think so?
I think those were rule guys again. I think that this could be just a separation of further removing the cancer that they saw as Matt Rule. At least that's from the outside looking in, right? Paul Pasqualoni is an interesting one. It was a bit interesting. That was a bit of a surprise.
That's the one that I'm interested, because that's not a Rule guy.
Well, they are, because Rule was, I can't remember. I remember there being an interview with regard to Rule, and they know each other like pretty well outside of football.
Yeah, Pasqualoni used to be the head coach at Syracuse.
Oh, see, I did not remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a part of it there that kind of comes into play, but at the end of the day, I don't think that if you ask me, Steve Wilkes is not in the mindset of tanking. This dude is playing his heart out to try to get a head coaching job or to stay in the NFL in a coaching position, and preferably in a defensive coordinator position, right? And the fact that you had a guy last week that's Arthur Smith giving so much praise to Steve Wilkes for how he's been handling this situation. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and pat opposing teams, a coach on the back, but the dude seems to really respect what Steve Wilkes has done. And I think Steve Wilkes has that mindset. He's going to try to do something to turn this thing around.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that the team played like it did in Cincinnati.
I agree.
And you saw how upset he was on the sideline. Or at least I could tell. And also after that Falcons game, the Falcons game, Steve Wilkes was devastated. You know, I mean, I'm not like he was shook, and he was going to go cry about it, but you could tell that he thought, man, we're about to catch something right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We get that big play, that momentum. He was disappointed. That's all I'm saying.
That's why Tony, that's why I don't blame him for making the fires. I mean, I understand why you think it might be an overreaction, but as what you said, I believe that Steve Wilkes had a genuine thought and feeling that this team and this division can still compete. And this is a perfect opportunity for him to audition for this next head coaching job. But it brings up this conundrum, right? Because, and we talked about this a little bit last show, before we move on completely,